welcome back to PyroFalkon Streaming Sundays. Today is August 7th, 2016, and hopefully you are watching this live. If you're watching this from the archive, you should join us every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube, and I try to make the alert a week early, so you can always see what URL to visit over a week prior to joining. Words. I think that made sense. So this week we are continuing our Tin Star story, which is a choose-your-own-adventure game written by Alan Geese, or Geis. I apologize if you're listening to this somehow and I screwed up your name, but anyway, you can buy this game on Steam. A link is in the video description. But as last week, this is audience participation, and everyone who is in the chat gets to decide where the story goes, because of PyroFalkon's Let's Play Extravaganza, it's your Let's Play too. So once we come to a choice, just shout out the answer you want in the chat, and the Akamara and I will tally up the votes, and we will go with the majority. And I will only vote if I need to break a tie. So at the end of Chapter 1, we became a marshal, saved from death by hanging by a different marshal who sent us to... What was the place called? Some terrible... Oh, Preston Springs.
Bumfuck, Nevada.
Yes. And we managed to peacefully defuse a little situation. We also peacefully defused some rando trying to take our horse. It's been kind of surprising that the Blazing Hawks have chosen to go lawful good here, but hey, their story too. So, yeah.
Just wait, they'll fuck it up somehow. I have faith in them.
So we ride away from the watering hole atop our steed. The salt and pepper roan seems almost eager to finish this journey. The pack mule that trails behind could well take or leave the whole endeavor. And so you ride for days with just your horse and your... Sorry, Lord Ariados in the chat reminded me we also got shocked by lightning because during a storm we hopped up on a rock, spread our arms to the sky, and put our faith in the Lord, and got electrocuted for our efforts.
This is what faith does to you.
So, anyway, we ride for days with just your horse and your pack mule for company. It is a tiring, monotonous journey, but thankfully, come one morning, you see civilization in the distance. A cluster of sharp edges where everything has been curved and round. 24 low buildings lie in a valley between mountains. Preston Spring, at last. What the... Save Marshal Dingle Pingle's ending to Chapter 1. Yes, why wouldn't we do that? Game save successful. I didn't realize that was a thing I could have done last week. Anyway. For a boomtown, Preston Springs has got an awful lot of pane glass and painted signs. No less than 3 saloons, an inn, general store, blacksmith, and plenty more can be seen. If the railroad comes through here, this little burg is gonna be big. Nothing to do but head on over and see what is what. Preston Springs is a dusty little burg with 24 stout timber buildings scattered along the main street. A handful of other frames wait to be filled out at one end while wagons and stagecoaches rest in the shade of broad alleyways. 4 fronts in particular loom above the others. Red bunting of a nearby saloon frames the words, "The Mother Lode," while a bit of silver paint just down the way gleams bright in the sun of another called the Evening Star. A pair of gold-painted lanterns adorn the luxurious exterior of another saloon, whose sign reads, "Babylon." Amidst those 3 saloons resides the crisp curtained windows of a hotel that could belong in San Francisco or even Chicago. The sign above the entrance, meticulously painted in elegant sweeps of cursive script, reads Grand Heaven Hotel. A general store, smithy, stables, and a gold exchange round things out. Plenty of other wood-board buildings don't have signs at all, and look a lot more like residences. There are not a lot of people on the streets during the midday heat, but a rough-shirted prospector staggers across with a bucket of beer balanced precariously in hand and a ladle in the other. An empty pouch looped around his neck. His hat is pleasantly askew above a sharp widow's peak as the former shades his sun-creased features. What? Oh, as the hat. Okay, that's weird. Without being prompted, he mumbles a little loudly about how his drunken feet are trying to do him in. So we have 3 options about how we can approach what we are doing here. We can approach the drunk prospector, try and find the marshal's office, or wander into the Mother Lode. In the chat, just hit 1, 2, or 3, and I will tally up the votes after about 30 seconds to a minute, and we will go from there. The votes are in, and option 2 wins. We are going to try and find our marshal's office. Just a ways down the main street, tucked in beside the gleaming glass of the Babylon Saloon, lies a little one-story shack. Half the front is missing, and most of the roof has vanished as well. But out on a post out front are the faded words U.S. Marshal and the outline of Silver Star, your office. The inside is strewn with broken glass, torn cloth, and an errant tumbleweed that has taken root in the single cell to the rear. There should be doors, but those have long since walked off. No doubt about it, the past few marshals haven't fared too well.
Lol, we're gonna die.
So we have 3 options what we can do to kind of clean up a little bit here. Select 1, 2, or 3, and shout it in the chat. Votes are in, and option 2 wins. We are going to get that tumbleweed out of there first. You take hold of the tumbleweed and fling it out the door. A small victory, but then you'll take all of those you can get. The office is just starting to look tidied. It's starting to get tidied when a sudden skittering rises up from beneath a pile of discarded tins. Something small, furry, and brown doubts out across the floor and takes refuge beneath your chipped wood desk.
Mouse, murder it.
A moment later, the whiskers and pink nose of a mouse peeks out from about the leg. A mouse in your house. Votes are in, and option 2 wins. Our first chaotic choice. Oops. Our first chaotic choice of the story. We're going to shoot it. You pull your pistol and take aim as best you can. With a flurry of brown fur, the little fella darts off. Before you can squeeze the trigger, it disappears between a pair of floorboards and disappears from sight. Ah. You set to work on the office, but just as the cobwebs begin to clear, a long shadow falls across the boardwalk just outside. There's a lean rake of a man... What? Oh, there, a lean rake of a man slouches against the setting sun with his hat pulled low and a hand on the revolver high up in his waistband. A gunfighter, and he's aimed himself directly at your office. Marshal, he calls out in imperious tones. I'm Jack, Tumbleweed Jack, and I'm here to avenge my brother. Come on out here. Is he avenging the tumbleweed we chucked out of the office earlier? Anyway. Votes are in, and option 3 wins. We slip out the back and circle around behind the man. It takes a little bit to circle around the man, but the long shadows cast by the setting sun make that easy enough in some places. As Tumbleweed starts into a soliloquy about why he's here and you shouldn't be, you step behind him. His features are shrouded in darkness like an angel of darkness. What? God. Okay, anyone who writes, tip 1, if you're going to do some sort of fancy, simile or something, try not to use the same word twice in the same sentence, because then it sounds redundant and it sounds a little doofy. So rather, his features are shrouded in darkness like an angel of darkness. You would want to say something like, his features are shrouded in darkness like the small key of a piano. I don't know, just not doubling up darkness. Anyway.
Or you could just take out the first in darkness. His features are shrouded like an angel of darkness.
Yes, especially since it follows up with a second phrase, which makes it sound good.
Remember, folks, brevity is the soul of wit.
Yes, exactly. You could even take out the second one, so it's his features are shrouded in darkness, or actually the fact that he said his features are, and then his features nearly, you could combine that sentence and make it his features are nearly eclipsed like an angel of darkness. And then you get everything without the redundancy. Because I'm a writer.
That
I'm
sentence
sorry.
hurts.
What?
That sentence hurts.
As he wrote it, or the one I just made up?
As he wrote it.
Okay, yeah.
Hang on. Okay. Yeah, corn burp.
I'm here to settle accounts for my brother, he calls out toward the office, still oblivious. You ready? Votes are in, and unanimously the viewers select hit him with the butt of my pistol while his back is turned. Your boot scruffs the dirt far too loudly. Tumbleweed Jack spins on his heel and his pistol rises up with a snap. A shot rings out. Something smacks into your shoulder and spoils your aim. Tumbleweed Jack methodically raises the dark maw of his pistol's barrel and sights it between your eyes. A flash of brilliant light erupts. The world goes black. And that is that. You had just found your office when Tumbleweed Jack ended all your days. What?
Are we dead?
We're dead that fast.
Dude!
That's kind of surprising.
Mulligan?
Yeah. I kind of like that it gave me a save point. Like, one of the options here is that is not how my story ends. Take me back to the start of that encounter. Wow, death comes quick and early in this one. Alright, that is not how our story ends. Legend reduced? Oh, so we have a stat. Let's see, where is legend? Maybe... Okay, I don't see legend here. Maybe it's a hidden stat, which could make sense. So maybe the game is keeping track of how many times we restart. That's actually really clever. I'm happy for this. Alright, so... Alright, so we have 4 options. Now, you guys could slip out the back again, because remember, we're good shooters, so if you pick that option, we could shoot him in the back while we're out there. Or we can do something else. So, again, Jack is screaming at us to avenge his brother. We have 4 options. Please choose one of those 4. Votes are in, and the fans choose to do this slightly differently. We're going to go out and meet this fool. Order and honor slightly increased. It takes a little bit to circle around the man, but the long shadows cast by the setting sun... What?
Did you accidentally reselect?
I did not. I chose the first one. I'm pretty damn sure I chose the first one. We're going to look at the footage on the feedback. Because I'm pretty damn sure I picked... Yep, I picked the first one. I did not choose slip out and circle behind the back. So I don't know why the game made me do that. Okay. Well, I guess we're just going to go from here since the game is making us do that. So, alright. Let's see. So, we're still behind him somehow. Alright, so now we have the same 6 options as before. So we do not want to hit him with the butt of our pistol. Probably, unless you want to die again. So I suppose choose 1 through 5. Shout it out in the chat, and we will continue from there. Votes are in, and option 5 wins. We are going to try shooting Tumbleweed Jack in the back. A single shot flies right through his back, and Tumbleweed Jack takes a final tumble. Honor reduced, order increased. Morning comes... Oh, so that's just it. Tumbleweed Jack's dead. Alright.
That's what you get for being a bitch.
Morning comes, and with it, breakfast. Hardtack is always around, but the best way to eat it is with bacon grease. That sounds disgusting. Coffee is always a good start as well, but at this point you are boiling beans a second time, and while it'll get you going, it won't go down quiet. Oh, I see. He's basically doing coffee with the second... Ew, that's like running it through the same grounds twice. Gross. You are just getting started with things when a young boy of about 7 winters scurries up to your lack of a door and gives a knock. Mr. Marshal, he asks in a quiet voice that bears just a hint of a lisp. I got this note for you. The child passes over a simple slip of white paper, folded clean along the center and dry as a bone. The words are simple to read. Kindly come to the Babylon for breakfast. The note is signed J.T. Preston. The messenger boy races off and leaves you with the note in hand. Votes are in and option 3 wins. We finish our breakfast first, then head over. You down the meager meal, let us settle a bit, then step on over to the Babylon. With a name like the Babylon, you expect the air of the exotic, and you are not disappointed. Colored glass windows turns the sunlit interior into a blind man's crazy quilt with shifting pools of radiance that dance along the length of the mahogany bar. That is how you make a sentence of imagery. That was an amazing sentence. Oh god, that was delicious to speak, to read. 1,001 bottles of blown glass, each filled with varying spirits, line the far wall upon a black velvet blanket. A full silver mirror perches above the whole of that, and reflects the glory of it all right back down. A full silver mirror perches above the whole of that, and reflects the glory of it all right back down. Ugh. The scent of incense, jasmine, and cinnamon fills the air. A faint harmony of wind chimes sings out in a passing breeze, and beneath your boots there is not a hint of sand or dust. At the far end of the saloon waits a table complete with a white lace cover and polished silverware. The man ensconced at the head of it wears a lion's grin as he regards you. "You must be Mr. James Dinglepinger, the new marshal," he says knowingly as he leans back in his chair and brushes idly at a trimmed mustache. "And I, of course, am J.T. Preston, founder of this happy little town. I heard some gunshots earlier. Hope it wasn't anyone I knew." Ivory-touched cufflinks clink at his wrists, while a solid gold pocket watch rests comfortably in his silk-trimmed vest. Below the table, buff black shoes meet hand-pressed suit pants. God, he doesn't use enough commas. That's another problem. I probably overuse commas in my writing, but it's because of this nonsense. It's hard to figure out what adjectives are affecting what nouns when you don't use commas. If the man suffered to bring this town into being, he certainly hides it well. A quartet of rough-looking men in very similar dark brown dusters sit or lean about the four corners of the room. Each has a potent shotgun slung. That makes them bodyguards by any other name. "Why don't you have a seat?" Mr. Preston says and pushes away a plate strewn with the leavings of breakfast. "If you're hungry, Miss McMurphy makes a mean set of hash. If not, there's coffee." Preston looks at you expectantly as he offers a hand and a seat. Votes are in and option 1 wins. We shake hands and reluctantly take a seat opposite Preston. Haven't you asked around about me? I ain't setting you up for anything. After all, I don't know you yet," Preston says with a kindly smile that doesn't reach his eyes. A stray bit of pocket lightning zaps between fingers as the two of you shake hands. "That happen a lot?" Preston asks, that bit of a crackle. We have 3 options.
Only when I touch sinners. What a
Which
dick.
Funny.
What a douche. What a cunt.
So please select one of those 3.
What an ass
and we'll
blasting
continue from there.
bitchaloid. All the time since I got hit by lightning, if you couldn't tell by my bright-ass purple bruises all up on down my body.
As the Akamura said, option 1 was the one that won. Huh. I'll want to hear about that eventually, Preston considers and leans back in his chair with an air of amusement. "Let's talk about you, shall we?" Preston begins. "You were pretty quick about coming out. A steady writer, I'd figure. But I haven't heard much about you. I hope you were interesting because I've had more than enough boredom." You can tell he's got a lot to say. Votes are in, and unanimously, option 1 wins. Let the man talk. He takes a sip of his coffee and dives right in. "I made some inquiries, Mr. James Dinglepinger, and near as I can tell, you've lived a sheltered life. There is something in the works here, something I can't see, and that bothers me." Votes are in, and option 4 wins. The innocent have nothing to fear from me. Well, that's not reassuring me any. Preston reaches into a vest pocket and pulls out a tin sheriff's star, one not so different from the kind you yourself wear. He sets it down, taps one edge, and sends it spinning. "Do you know the difference between a marshal and a sheriff? They both get a badge, but the sheriff has to drink more coffee, since he's got to mark his borders more often," Preston explains. "Maybe that's why the people of Preston Springs saw fit to make me their sheriff." Votes are in, and option 2 wins. And, we say, if I can control the mouse, "I do not wear the badge and I do not patrol the streets. People here need to be able to do what they want and pay for it. The only thing I'm here for is keeping the larger piece and making sure that some other fool isn't elected to this position and doesn't get shoved into a pine box after a week or 2. Preston explains calmly, and then the badge clatters to a halt upon the table. "I think you know the troubles that have plagued this town. Gunfighters come a-calling, or tempers flare and pistols appear. We had 4 sheriffs in rapid succession, and just as many marshals, too. Not a good time to be a lawman, though Mary, our gravedigger, would no doubt dispute the point." A lady, wearing a spotless white apron to match her fair skin, strides over with a fresh pot of coffee, as well as a plate of sugar-glazed bread. Her long blonde hair is bound up tight in an intricate French braid, and cool blue eyes regard you briefly in passing. A proper bustle and full powder blue linen skirt rounds things out. If not for the saloon, you could readily imagine her in an East Coast salon. Wow, that was a little too close to saloon, so it broke my brain for a second. Sir, she nods slightly and as she goes about things. Thank you, Miss McMurphy, Preston tells her. Things are looking dire here. You know I hate when you tease like that, she replies, as she nimbly steps away from him and heads back to the kitchen. Once she has departed, Preston lets out a little chuckle. Don't let her fool you. She loves running this place. That's why I made her my partner. For the Babylon, anyway. Now, where were we? Oh, right. Tumbleweed Jack. Votes are in and option 2 wins. He's dead. Yes, he's dead. Nicely done, Preston admits. Votes are in and option 1 wins. You know a lot about me, but I don't know much about anything about you, Mr. Preston. That's true, Preston nods amiably. How much of my particulars do you have time for? Votes are in, and option 2 wins. We steer him toward the particulars. Yes, who has the time for long-winded stories when there is business to be done? Suffice to say, I grew up in South Carolina under a father who should have never left the army. Indeed, when secession reared its ugly head... Whoa. I assume he meant head, but there's no word after ugly, so it's... When secession reared its ugly, he dragged me with him to enlist. I adapted well, like all the regimentation was just like home. Well, except for the games of chance that drew me like a moth to flame. It was almost worth seeing the terrible sight of war. First at Blackburn's Ford, and then at what they now call the Battle of Bull Run. My father was in no condition to enforce his will upon me, and so I let my enlistment expire and pursued my newfound love of gambling. Preston lets his fingers tap out a peculiar rhythm atop the table. The tune is one that only he seems to hear. It took several years, but I eventually won such a pot that I could no longer drift idly through life. No, as I rode off, I knew I needed to do something more concrete with my life. That night I dreamed of a city in the desert that catered to my vices, even as it displayed my virtues. I rode west, came upon this little spot. It used to be called Sweetwater by the Shoshone, and deservedly so. I built the town, cajoled a populace to settle in, and renamed it in my honor as Preston Springs. Preston sips at his coffee and regards you with a weighty glance. Marshal, I would like there to be an understanding between us, an arrangement to our mutual benefit. Do you understand what I am offering? Votes are in and option 2 wins. You're offering us a partnership. A partnership, Preston repeats and rolls the word around on his tongue. Yes, you could call it that. I handle town business, you handle the county. Now I know your tasks will take you far from here, but there is much I can do to assist you. That office of yours needs fixing up, and you'll need a place to sleep until then. Luckily, I own the hotel, and its accompanying stable. Your office does need work, and having a place to stay would certainly relieve the burden of paying for things with money you don't have. No doubt there would be other benefits down the road, down the line as well. God, that's my brain just inventing how I would write the end of that sentence. Well, partner, what do you think? Preston asks politely. Votes are in, and option 1 barely wins. I think we will get along fine. Preston's offer hangs in the air between you as he holds out a hand for you to shake. A sealing of the deal, your non-interference in town matters, in exchange for his fiscal backing of you as marshal. It promises to be a step up from nothing. After all, a marshal's salary isn't much, especially as everything from California has to be brought in via stagecoach. Heck, you may even be able to afford a deputy eventually. Oh, so here is our... I guess final chance, unless we do a renegotiate, I guess. Option 1, 2, or 3 in the chat. Votes are in, and unanimously, option 1 wins. We take Preston's hand. There we are. Nice and neat, Preston says as he clasps your hand. I'll set about things as of today. Did you hear that?
Yes.
God damn.
Was that cash?
Kind of hope it was cash. Otherwise, you've got a freaking werewolf in the hall or the thing across the thing.
He barks so weird.
He does. Well, I got scared because it kind of sounded like he was getting strangled during a fight or something.
No, he just sounds like that, I think.
Yeah, he's very excitable. Anyway.
I was going to say, if that was the case, I'm pretty sure Gus would be freaking out.
Oh, yeah, I know. Preston walks with you toward the saloon doors. Harsh sunlight drifts in, mars the brightly colored streaks of the stained glass of the Babylon windows. His 4 shotgun-armed deputies cease to lean about the saloon and watch close as their boss conducts you out. It was good to meet you, Marshal, Preston begins as you reach the swinging doors. I am pleased that you saw sense. Not many men understand how things are out here. I hope we will be able to sustain our pleasant relations from this day forward.
And I ship it.
Did not expect you to say that of all things, and I don't know why.
You go, Jim.
God. A shot rings out through the morning air. A stream of cussing rises up from the Motherlode Saloon just down the way. I know the tenor of that smoke wagon. Why don't you handle this one, Marshal? Preston says, then withdraws back into the Babylon. A bleary-eyed man in a solid blue shirt and trail trousers stumbles out through the swinging doors of the Motherlode Saloon, and a whiff of gunsmoke follows. He stumbles as he slips around you, clutches at his shirt collar, where it had been recently sundered along the length, like as not by that shot you just heard. Miss Carroway, I was just trying to help, he all but yelps over a shoulder, and then ducks as the cold clack of a revolver calls out from inside the saloon. Go fall in a well, a woman snaps back with a length of wet rawhide. Anyway. The man hurries off, heedless of anything but escape. Votes are in and option 5 wins. I'm coming in. Kindly set down your firearm. It'll be better that way. Go fall in a well and hit the other fella who went in first, she calls out in clarion challenge. You step through the still swinging saloon doors and into the Motherlode. Sunlight spills through the windows in long beams to illuminate half a dozen tables and thrice as many chairs scattered on one half. Those at the back are piled with card decks, while those up close are chipped and stained in places from hard use. 5 paces of oak makes for a tidy bar, with a bevy of stains, mugs, and cups, I guess that's steins, whatever, settled on either side of a mammoth painting of a familiar place, San Francisco Bay, in all its grand majesty, and clustered of bayside buildings too. If you squint real hard, you can almost make out the hill you were to be hung on. At the far end of the bar, perched upon a stool, waits a young woman, half-shrouded by a long leather duster. Her practical blue calico blouse is rumpled and dusty, while her black trousers are torn and ripped at the bottom, where a bloody gash has dried fair skin shut. A hefty and still smoking revolver lies upon the bar beside a half-filled bottle of sour whiskey, while a twin to the handgun rests idly on her hip as part of a fine 2-gun rig. From beneath a floppy-brimmed hat and a long length of auburn hair gathers in a ponytail that disappears behind her duster-shrouded shoulder. Seriously, I like the story, but this guy really needs to learn punctuation. A hint of freckles assails the bridge of her nose, while storm-gray eyes watch her every move and promise thunderous retribution should you somehow escape the imminent flash of lightning. Hey, you're that marshal, ain't you? She asks with an odd sort of chuckle. The one who killed Tumbleweed. Honestly, I don't mind that you did. Less competition. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks amid the suddenly silent town.
Puppy!
Here we are, just... I just pictured you in that position, just randomly going, Puppy! While you're addressing this poor lady.
Wait, is that a dog? I'm gonna go pet it! Holy shit! Oh my god! You're so big and growly!
You're adorable. Here we are, just 2 strangers a-meetin', Miss Carroway notes in even tones that could still sand down granite. What do you want? Votes are in and option 3 wins. We are here to find out what's going on. Why should that matter, she ponders. What's this to you, stranger? She pours you a generous shot and then another for herself. As you take your tumbler, she salutes you with hers, then downs the drink with a single toss. Not the best, but it ain't even noon. Best not to have more than 3 shots in you before then, even if all of them ain't whiskey. Votes are in and option 4 wins. That fella who fled. Did he do something to piss you off? Why, I'm the soul of friendliness, she says, and flashes you a smile that could tear the head off a snake.
I'm scared. My bayonet sack just retreated into my body.
That is a good line. And yeah, he asked if he could give me a hand. Turns out he wasn't talking about that cut. Votes are in and option 2 wins. I'd like to take a look at that cut. Miss Carraway leans back upon her stool. You want to bind my wound? The other fella said he wanted that. Turns out he wasn't interested in that particular cut. Votes are in, and it's pretty spread out across the board, but option 2 is the majority. Let me tend that wound. I'm something of a doctor. Something of a doctor, Miss Carraway considers. What's that mean? Votes are in and option 1 wins. I don't practice anymore. Practice makes perfect, so I'm not sure if I want someone who's gathering moss to look things over. But I suppose it can't hurt, she considers. Miss Carraway's wound is a jagged thing that runs right along the upper calf to the boot top, and a little ways inside, too. The leather retains the definite gash of a knife. If you had to guess, she did this to herself by pulling a blade from her boot the wrong way. The fact of why she had to do that, or where the sharp iron is now, remains a mystery. The actual binding and should be easy. What? So either he missed a word after and, or and shouldn't be there. Anyway, the actual binding should be easy, as Miss Carraway has already gathered a few strips of washed cloth. A dash of whiskey will help keep down the pus, laudable or otherwise. With her already taking shots, she won't hardly feel a thing. Votes are in, and option 1 barely wins. We bind the wound up tight. After it is done, Miss Carraway gives you a little nod. Not bad there, stranger. Say, I never did get your name. Honor slightly increased. Votes are in, and option 2 wins. I am James Dinglepinger. Pleased to meet you, she says. Now you want to help me finish off this bottle. Wow, it's before noon. I thought you didn't want to drink that heavily before noon. Votes are in, and the fans are going schizophrenic. We are going to let her drunk and then get drunk and then take her in. The question remains about what to do with Miss Carraway. She certainly did fire her pistol at someone in the motherlode, though to hear her tell things, there was just cause. Admittedly, your initial conversation with Miss Carraway could be taken as threatening a U.S. Marshal. A serious crime. But arresting and charging her could take a while to solve. She'd have to be taken down to Elko, set before a judge, a trial date fixed, assuming the preliminary hearing meets their requirements to proceed. It'll take 2 weeks or more. All in all, a hassle to prosecute, but not doing so may send the wrong message. Or the right one, where Mr. Preston is concerned. He did seem to have a soft spot for her. Votes are in, and option 5 wins. We let her off with a warning. Yeah, she mutters, as she steps out into the morning sun and shades her eyes. I won't shoot no one who isn't trying to shoot back. Same as every day. With that, she staggers out into the morning light and heads back to the Motherlode Saloon. Honor and order, slightly decreased. Well, it has been about an hour and a half. I work tomorrow, and I don't know how long Chapter 3 is, so I think this will be a good stopping point for now. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We will resume next week, and if I can ever get a Sunday off, I actually have a few Sundays off coming up, so I might do an early stream. I will announce that both on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and everything else, so you guys know it's coming, and then maybe we can bust this out a little quicker. But for now, doing one more chapter, I think serves pretty well, and we are moving fairly quickly along. So, yes, because it is only 9:30, Lord Ariados, I will be doing an after party. We can discuss what we're doing after I do the full close. Oh, I'm not leaving yet, Dragon Lady. We're just ending the mainstream. We're ending the mainstream that goes into the archive, but we will be having an after party, and we can talk about what we're doing then. And you know my after parties, sometimes they're a half hour long, sometimes they go until frickin' midnight, and I starve myself to death. So, anyway. But for those of... Oh, show stats? I can do that, actually. So we have 60% on order, 56% honor, 53% law. So we're not bad for a healthy and vigorous and apparently doctor.
Scroll through influence.
James Dinglepinger. He's Dr. Mr. James Dinglepinger. Anyway, yes, we have influence here. 65% for Carson. The cowboy we met at the end of the first chapter. 70% for Schmidt, also who we met at the end of the last chapter. 60% for Carraway. 80% for Preston. He's really liking us. And then Hardigan, Albion, Maria, and Yiska we haven't met. Marshall
Wait,
James is at
Yiska?
50%. Yes, Yiska.
Wow.
Why is that? Wow.
Just, I have a character named Yiska because it's a very pretty name.
Oh, neat. Oh, and TC says chapter 3 is pretty long. Okay, cool. So this is a good reason to stop,
That's
actually.
Probably our token spaghetti western Native American.
Okay. So I'm going to click end of chapter 2 because it gives me a chance to save. Your last checkpoint save is for chapter 1. Would you like to save your ending to chapter 2? Yes. Save Marshall Dinglepinger's ending to chapter 2. Cool. And we will start reading chapter 3 next week. So if you are watching this live, stick around for the after party where we can discuss what we're going to be doing. But if you're watching this on the archive, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next week for another stream.
Bye. You want to know what Yiska means?
What does Yiska mean?
The night has passed.
That's kind of pretty.
Right? It's gorgeous. It's a very rare name, too.